Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Game Week 28 pod of the FPL Wire. I'm your host, Zofa. My co host, Lateriser, and I are joined by our friend, BigManBakar. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zof. Hello and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. Yeah, good week after ages. Hoping to build on some momentum with the blanks and doubles to come. Finally, it's nice to be on the end of a nice week.
Eventful week on Twitter, Bakar.
Extremely. I mean, people like taking things out of context. I generally don't even check my notifications. And I mean, there were some comments that passed my attention. I mean, they were brought to my attention by a few friends of mine. And I mean, I laughed at them. I mean, it was just a simple post comparing, let's say, a Stupinan with a Brentford defender, just because, we're considering buying Chilwell this week. And I mean, people were like slating me for it, even though it was just like a pros and cons list of selling either. I never advised anyone to sell anyone, yet people were sort of blaming me as if I had hacked into their team and made the transfer for them. I mean, yeah, people. It's nice actually that it was a good week for many, because I see a lot of people have been very sensitive of late, and they seem to be sort of piling on the content creators for no reason whatsoever. I mean, I don't take things to heart. I'm very thick-skinned, but I mean, it's just an insignificant minority, and I don't really care about them. So yeah, move on.
Ooh. What about you, Anna? How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. The weekend was actually good from an FPL point of view, but last night, I thought I was in a position to consolidate the week further, but felt like because I was a McAllister captain, and so that didn't work out yesterday. So it could have been a much better week. I got a good score, 105, but yesterday is when you lost out, so it's more recent, which is why you thought you could have done better. on the last day. But I feel like I've used the term KLPD a lot on Twitter this week, and it felt like that kind of a weekend. Especially, I thought Martinelli should have had a return or two more. Mac should have had a return or two more, and just don't feel satisfied with this score this week.
Fair enough. Lot to unpack for next week. Let's not dwell on this week too much. Short turnaround. Let's get right into it. Get into the sponsor plan. All data you see on the FPL Wire is taken from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. The new improved members area is now up and running, and the new comparison tool lets you compare key stats for up to 3 players. Player projections are also live, and as always, you can access the custom stats table we create or make one for yourself. Sign up for membership today using our affiliate link in the description below. Right, boys, let's kick off with a rather easy one. First up, some guy just scored 5 goals midweek and we're all thinking of selling him. Let's talk about that. Where are you guys on selling Erling Haaland? LR, you first.
I mean, you got to chase the upside, right? I mean, there is apps. I don't know a world in which I wouldn't have sold Haaland, irrespective of what he did. I mean, when my head sees one game versus 3 games for whichever striker you choose to get in this week, I'm just going to pick the one with 3 games on this occasion, as long as I have a plan to get Haaland in 30. And what's worked in this favor is a certain Ivan Toney is on 9 yellow cards now, and he's 1 yellow card away from a 2-game suspension. I wouldn't mind it at all if he got that in the game against Leicester in 28, so that I can peacefully get Haaland back in 29 and watch the Liverpool game on the couch instead of behind it in Gameweek 29. Because the Liverpool game is a great game for Erling Haaland. Liverpool have been very leaky all season. They've been terrible on the road. I think in the worst 5 teams away for minutes per XGC as well. So that's a 2-3 goal game for Haaland, but I'm going to roll the dice.
Yep. We have the data up which you shared earlier in terms of average. I think XGC from away from home this season, Liverpool are the 6th worst. They're like just below Forest. So the numbers as such.
The top for big chances conceded. Top for big chances conceded away from home, Liverpool. So the risks are there, but I agree with Pranil. I mean, especially when captaincy isn't a factor in 29 for Haaland. I mean, I think it's just worth selling him to buy 2 extra fixtures. It just makes too much sense.
I just want to add a little thing. One thing I've noticed as a trend with Liverpool, and actually the Madrid game tells us otherwise, but they in the league, they've tended to perform on the level of their opposition. So when the big game has come up for them this season, they haven't done too badly in those games. So this is just me trying to console myself if I don't have Haaland in 29. But I'm going to roll the dice.
Yep. It is a scary prospect, and his EO is going to be around 80, 90. And if this was around game week 8, game week 10, early on in the season, I'd say maybe fair. But I think you have to take these risks now at this point to go against him, because ultimately, if you do hold him, right, his EO is still going to be what, 80, 90. You're not going to gain much. But that being said, I think if you are in the upper echelons, holding him isn't necessarily a bad move. If you have other fires to fight, you could possibly get rid of a Brighton mid, do something in defense, because we wouldn't be selling Haaland if it wasn't a blank. We're only doing it to make up the numbers. But that being said, I think there are some very good options to replace Haaland, which also make the whole thing a lot more attractive, right? Let's discuss some of those.
Yeah. But before we move on to that, because I think we're talking about it only from the lens of a 26 wildcard or 27 wildcard, people who've probably held Haaland. 26 wildcard, I think 27 wildcard doesn't even get Haaland. But if you have 10 players this week, you don't necessarily need to get him. So it depends on the makeup of your team as well. So I just wanted to add that little point.
Absolutely agree with you there. Because ultimately, we want to retain the Brighton mids. Why? Because they have the double next week and we want to keep them for the longer term. That is the main reason we are probably selling Haaland. But other than that, so shall we discuss the replacements now?
Yep.
So I have
Where are you at, Zoff?
I'm most likely going for Watkins, and let's get the Watkins versus Havertz discussion. Let's dive into that first. I think I don't want to use Havertz numbers right now, what we see over here on this table. I think Havertz is not even in the top 20. for all players for XG non-penalty over the last 6 matches, but his role changed a little bit since we moved to a back three. That being said, he does drop deep a lot. He makes the team around him better, but he is on the end of things a lot more. I do like Havertz, but what I have seen with Watkins now more so, he's absolutely on everything for Villa. He's become a talisman since Ings has left. I've got a pass map up from the last game. It's all directed to provide service for Watkins. The big chance numbers, the XG, it's all up. There's 7 big chances over the last 6 matches. XG non-penalty 2.95, 13 shots in the box. He's involved in everything Villa do. Bakar, where are you on Watkins versus Havertz?
Zom, if I had a wildcard left, and if I was using a wildcard after, let's say, Gameweek 30, 31, I prefer Havertz. I just think those fixtures for Chelsea are great when you look at the next 3. As we've spoken about Liverpool, they're really poor away from home. So Liverpool fixture and 29 is really good as well. Everton this week. The thing about Watkins is he's a safe option, which is why I think for Gameweek 26 wildcarders like us, it makes a lot of sense. And the main thing is that I'm just concerned about Havertz's rotation after Game Week 30 is the big point, because Chelsea have the UCL matches sandwiched in between 30, 31, and 32. So it doesn't really sound ideal to bring Havertz in and then to sell, especially if you own Tony as well, because there's the impending suspension looming for Tony. So you don't really want to be in a position where you own both Tony and Havertz after 29, because both of them will be fires to put out. So in the case if you already own only Tony and are looking to sell Haaland, I much rather prefer Watkins.
I don't agree with the X minutes argument as much. There are a lot of reasons possibly shouldn't invest in Havertz, but I think X minutes would be very low. I expect him to start every game. He's done 3 games a week for this entire UCL run as well. And what he brings to the team is quite unique compared to all our other forwards. He's not somebody who's very old. He's still a very young player. Fitness levels are there. X minutes, I don't think are an issue for Havertz specifically, but the team around him could get rotated. You could see the likes of James, Chilwell, and the other players being rested, which possibly could reduce his output in 30, 31. But a lot depends on the UCL draw. If we get the Tuesday, Wednesday turnaround or the Wednesday, Tuesday turnaround.
Potter is one of a kind. I mean, I don't really trust him. Even if he's played games thrice a week in the past, I won't necessarily put it past him to bench Havertz randomly or even take him off early. So, that's why Watkins, in terms of expected minutes, definitely has the edge. And the thing is, Watkins, when you look at his fixtures after game week 30, they're really good as well. Forest, Brentford, Fulham in 3 of the next 3 after 30. So that's one thing I like about him. I'm actually, I would have been more inclined to go Havertz had the UCL rotation not been a thing, but that's why I'm not really looking at Havertz, even though I prefer him for the next 3.
Pranil, where are you on this? You're a resident Chelsea fanboy.
Yeah, I'm on Kai at the moment, but I just wrote an article looking at strikers today for Scout, so the thought process is kind of fresh in terms of what I'm thinking. Now, first things first, when it comes to Ollie Watkins, there's absolutely no reason not to pick him, because like you mentioned, they're playing in a playstyle where they're essentially feeding Watkins to score. That's how his role is in the team. It's almost DCL-esque, but he's a lot more mobile than that. He's much bigger and better press monster than that. That said, I think the ceiling of the team when it comes to Chelsea versus Aston Villa, I think Chelsea's ceiling as a team is much higher. I much prefer the fixtures for Chelsea in 28 as well as 29. And, Kyle Potter's favorite at the moment. It's quite visible. He's playing 90 minutes. He's on pen, so that's the argument. About the expected minutes, what I quite like now is I think Chelsea are very much in the race for 4th and 5th. So I think every league game matters way more than people are estimating at the moment. Potter experimented as much as he could in the first 10 games. I think he's found his best team. I think he's found his best formation. And I think Chelsea need to win 3 points every league game they play, which has me slightly more optimistic about Kai's expected minutes. When I was looking at underlying data, and I'm talking only about Watkins and Kai right now, because I think there's a conversation needed to be had about Iheanacho as well as Isak, which we'll get to later. But when it comes to underlying data, in the last 2 games, Kai was matching Watkins for NPXG, 1.45 XGI for both Kai and Watkins. And I was looking at his data in the Champions League game as well, and he had a 1.12 XGI. So in a matter of 3 games, he's amassed a 2.5 XGI, which just tells me how involved he is. And I feel like Chelsea are a team on a positive upward trajectory. I just have a lot more confidence in them because of the quality of the players playing for your team, which is why I think there's a higher ceiling in the team. My doubt is whether there's a higher ceiling in Kai as a finisher. I don't know if he's the kind of guy who's explosive, who's going to get you braces, hat tricks, etc. But I do think that Chelsea are capable of scoring a higher number of goals in each team. They're on an upward trajectory, and I'm willing to roll the dice, which is why I'm just not a Watkins man. If you know me, I'm not a Watkins man. I'm willing to bet on Kai. That's where I am.
We've all been burned by Watkins in the past, but I think this is a very different setup under Emery. I'm just sharing some data which from a scout article. Since the restart, Villa have averaged 1.45 goals per game, Chelsea 0.83. But again, not much can be read into this because of how Chelsea have changed formation and setup over the last 2-3 matches, right?
Yeah, but I pointed this data out because despite Chelsea have been in dwindling form, at that pace, they've garnered higher shots per game compared to Villa. They've had higher big chances per game compared to Villa, and now their formation is set. So that's the thing in terms of I just see a higher ceiling with Kai. That's all. Watkins is a good safe pick. I have nothing wrong with him, but I'm chasing the upside with Kai.
Just to play devil's advocate, even if you look at Chelsea's underlying numbers since the change in formation, the XG average XG is 1.2, 1.3 non-pen XG per game over those 3 games, and Villa's is similar since Emery has taken over. So do you really think there's a bigger ceiling for Havertz? I think the ceiling for both is similar.
So what
I think
happened,
Chelsea have a way higher ceiling in my opinion.
So what has been happening in the last 20-30 minutes? Potter has been making quite negative substitutions even against Leeds. We switched to almost like, a one up top because that has to do a little bit with the nervousness in the team. About like, you need to get a few wins under the belt. That's when the attack will start flowing a little bit better. I do agree with Pranil. The ceiling is there. And let's talk about their opponents in terms of who these guys play. Now, we also have the numbers now up. We play Liverpool, Villa and Everton. And these are the top 7 worst teams for XGC away as we're showing in this data. So the fixtures are really good, as Pranil pointed out.
It's I think especially the Daesh game, the Everton home game is sort of based on game state. If Chelsea get an early goal, then the floodgates could open. Otherwise, it's a frustrating game. But I think Villa and Liverpool both have been quite open at the back, and I like my attackers facing that opposition. That's where I am with Kai. I kind of wish that Sterling was fit for the last game and Mudryk didn't do well in that forward role, because I was really eyeing up Raheem Sterling as a punt. I think he was one of the best differential explosive punts in the game. I think if people are on free hit and if Potter tells us tomorrow that he's fit, I think he should be in your team just to take a chance. But he's become a chance magnet in that team. Every time I've seen Raheem Sterling play, I also think that Sterling starting is kind of good for Kai as well because of the number of defenders he tends to occupy. He's a runner, at least space for Kai. And I think Felix, Kai and Sterling worked. Felix, not Felix. Worked together.
Yeah, yes. I'm not sure if Sterling will still start though, given how well Mudryk played and that Sterling is coming off the back of a hamstring injury. Even if he's declared fit, I wouldn't still have him in my free hit team. I don't agree with you there. My free hit, I think the picks are quite simple from Chelsea is James, Chilwell and Havertz.
Wait, before we digress, I just want to address Iheanacho and Isaka's picks because a few people are looking at them.
I want to add a few things over here as well. I mean, we're talking about the fixtures. You see, Bournemouth is right up there in the table, right? And so is Forest. And now those are two of 4 that Watkins are facing. That's also important to mention.
Absolutely.
And further, the 2 fixtures that Watkins has in 29 are away. And generally, when you look at his numbers under Emery, his average XGI is around 0.8 away from home, is almost double than his numbers at home. So I'm actually slightly more confident in Watkins away from home than I am with his fixtures at home.
I have nothing against Watkins as a pick. I think he's a perfectly fine pick. I'm just giving the reasons of why I'm going for Kai. That's all.
Absolutely. Like you said a bit earlier, there's no reason not to pick Watkins whatsoever.
Yeah.
He's a good long-term pick.
Yeah, because it's a good long-term pick again because there is a potential Chelsea double looming. And, if they stick around, if you guys are in the race for 4th or even 5th for that matter, you're getting doubles. You got good home games against Brighton, Brentford. You've got Bournemouth in 35, Forest in 36. So there are a decent run of fixtures until the end of the season. But cross that bridge when you get there. I think the next 3 home fixtures are worth targeting. That's all.
It also depends on 32 if you're going to free hit or not, right? Because we know that Chelsea are likely going to blank in 32. Do you think that has any weightage?
I think this weekend Casemiro less United are playing Fulham with Paulinho. So I don't know what you say about 32. It's sort of roller. I'm not very confident about a United victory at the weekend. I won't be surprised if United and Chelsea open up in 32.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the other options you were mentioning, Isaac and somebody else.
Iheanacho. Iheanacho is the one that really intrigues me because I think when it comes to fixtures and when it comes to upside, if you can bring back the strikers tables off.
Yes, it's up.
Yeah, like his non-penalty XG, this is the NP XG. I just want to see the table in front of me.
2.79.
Yeah.
It's about I think 8th or 9th amongst all 4 positions.
Correct. And what I saw was the NP XG in the last 6. Iheanacho played 60 or 70 minutes lesser than Watkins and was posting higher and better underlying numbers compared to Watkins. If I look back and try to recollect the Southampton game, I thought he should have hat-tricked in that game. I think out of the 3, I think he's the most explosive of the lot. So if you're, let's say, sitting outside top 500k and want to chase rank, he's the one I'd go for because I think he's the most capable of exploding. I rate him most as a player, as a finisher. I think Leicester, if they stick to the 4-2-3-1, which I think they'll revert to because they didn't play it last time because Barnes wasn't fully fit. That's the reason. But the problem with Leicester and picking Iheanacho is Brendan Rodgers. I was talking to Jazzy again, and he was on the Leicester forums as well. And 70 to 80% of the Leicester fans have Daka starting, and you sort of wonder whether Rodgers is just simply thinking, "This guy scored last. Let's put him on the pitch." The trust with Brendan Rodgers is the biggest fear and problem with going for a pick like Iheanacho. I wish he was nailed. If he was definitely nailed, his fixtures are fabulous. The great. I think he has the best fixture out of all the strikers in 29 as well. Palace and Villa, and then follow that up by Bournemouth. Follow that up by a confirmed game in 32. I like him as a pick, but I just don't trust Proj.
Yep, he's a no-go for me because of Rodgers.
Yeah, I was going to second you on it because Leicester's XG since Maddison has returned. I mean, you look at their fixtures versus Villa 2.6 versus Spurs 1.7, United 1.6, Southampton 2. Chelsea 2.5. Those are very good numbers, and that is despite some tough fixtures in there. So, I mean, I really like Nacho, and I agree he's the most high upside pick. But last week against Chelsea, they were 1 goal down, and he subbed Nacho for Vardy, who's been very ineffective in recent weeks. So he's just very unpredictable. So I agree with you that just this minutes risk, especially when there are other options who are nailed available, just makes him a flicky pick.
Yeah,
Isaac,
and certain people are looking at Isaac. I wasn't really looking at him. Credit to FPL Lost, who's been sort of pitching that pick to me. And he sent me a very interesting quote where Eddie Howe admitted that he is first choice and he struggled in the beginning with his injury and has been playing his way into the team and he's doing really well. And there is a certain momentum where he's first choice. I just don't like his fixtures in 29. I think United and West Ham in 29 isn't that great. I think traveling to Forest isn't that great, which is why if you're picking the safer route, I think you go Kai or Watkins. If you want to gamble, you go Iheanacho, which is why Isak isn't an option for me. The one thing in favor of Isak is you're probably buying yourself an extra fixture because Newcastle could have a double in 30-31, as per speculation. So that's the only thing.
Should mention Tony's number also. There is a top across the league for XG, non-penalty, and LR. He was sort of flirting with the idea of selling him when he got the 9th yellow.
Yeah.
Has that sort of crossed your mind again?
No, I'll roll the dice. I need the players. I need the points. I'm chasing rank.
Yep. And I think it's a good fixture. Like we discussed, Leicester are also quite poor away. So you definitely hold on to Tony this week.
Leicester are worse for XG conceded away from home. Yeah. Terrible numbers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else on the forwards, boys?
No. Anybody interested in Dom Solanke? I'm not.
No, I don't think that really merits much further discussion. Let's move on to defenders at the Chilwell question.
Yeah, sure.
So, where are you guys? Or do you guys like Chilwell as a pick over James? No, I watch a lot of Chelsea. I want your guys' perspective. And this is the only non-Chelsea fan. I ask you first, Bakar.
I really like the pick, because we have seen how well Chelsea's wing backs have done in the past, and even over the past 3 games, you look at the eye test, he's been doing really well. And he's on set pieces as well, which we have seen with defenders. That's an important factor because they tend to create chances and through which they will get bonus points, and that's how that helps them to haul. Uh, I think he's a very good pick, especially in 28, 29. And the thing why I sort of like him, it's easier to justify him over someone like a Havertz, even with the UCL rotation, is because there are not many high upside picks this week in defense. When you look at the defense, Shaw is not exactly as appealing with Casemiro out. United's actually conceded is way worse without Casemiro. So he isn't as appealing. And when Chilwell is playing in a wing back system, having proven his fitness, has played twice a week, I think he just makes more sense. And I really like the idea of bringing him in this week.
Alar?
He's obvious.
Right? I don't think we really need to extol his virtues much.
Yeah.
Taking set pieces, Cucurella covering on that side is letting him get forward a lot. And his fitness levels, I think, are definitely a step above James. Right now, I wouldn't be surprised even with the UCL around, he gets 60, 65 minutes even in game week 30.
Just
Definitely
a
good
bit
pick.
of news. I'm on Twitter. The England squad has
Yes.
been announced. Reece James, Ben Chilwell in the England squad, Madison in the England squad, and surprise, surprise, Ivan Toney in the
Yeah.
England squad.
He had to be there, man. If it only thing could possibly keep him out was the whole betting thing. Otherwise, there was no reason not to include Tony in there.
There you go. Yeah, just thought I'd add that. Timely news.
Since you did mention that, let's just touch upon Madison. We're slightly digressing, and this was something I was keenly watching out for because I'm still not convinced on Madison's fitness.
Zoff, just a second. Before we wrap up the Chilwell discussion, the pertinent question to ask here is that a lot of managers are in the position where they're wondering whether selling a Brentford defender to him is worth it. In my opinion, it's very straightforward. I think it is.
No, let's discuss the pros and cons first. I think it's the most of us, the issue is do you sell your Brighton defender or the Brentford defender? Now, justify to me why you would sell the Brentford defender over the Brighton one.
Firstly, because Brighton are likely to have a double in 30 or 31. Ben Cullen thinks it's very, very likely. They have more doubles across 34, 37. In general, Brighton have the better defense. Henry is attacking, but I don't think he has the same pedigree as someone like an Estupiñán going forward. So even with the fixture this week, as I've quoted Leicester's attacking numbers, I definitely expect them to score. So even if you're 1 or 2 points down after this week, I don't think it's the end of the world considering the fixtures that Estupiñán has to come. And you look at even game week 29. I mean, Brentford at home, Bournemouth away. He could haul easily, and we've seen he does really well for bonus points as well. So in my opinion, Estupiñán is just a superior pick, which is why I would rather keep him over Henry or Pinnock.
What about the whole Australia thing that people have been saying that might be back, not be back? But don't you think that's a bit of confirmation bias that people are looking for when you look to sell a player? You look for a lot of reasons to support that. Don't you think it's a bit of that?
I think if they're looking at that as a reason, they should be worried about Mitoma who's going to Japan. They should be worried about McAllister who's going to Argentina. I mean, I just think it's overblown. Brighton are in the race for fourth. If they win their remaining games, they're currently fourth or fifth. Can't afford to drop any points he plays.
Completely agree.
Yeah. And the reason why I prefer Estupiñán to Rico, I don't even think it's close. I think the difference between Estupiñán and Rico, if you've been watching the games, is day and night. He's a pick you're going to be happy to hold until 38. Estupiñán is great, amazing, one of the best value picks in the game right now. Wouldn't sell him. Stay with the bed you made with those Brighton picks in 26, 27 is my advice.
Completely agree.
So you reckon the Brentford midfielder Chilwell is worth a hit this week?
Brentford defender, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, defender.
Yes.
Same here.
I think so. Because ultimately, you look at the fixtures also for 29, right? What do they have? They have Brighton and United, if I'm not mistaken. Those aren't really clean sheet fixtures. And I thought the clean sheet against both are away. And even against Southampton last night, I watched bits of it. In the second half, they were just pretty much on backs to the wall and defending. They didn't really offer much in terms of attack. So it was a little bit fortunate, the clean sheet also, I did feel. They didn't look as completely solid as I would like. It was a very Burnley-esque sort of clean sheet last night.
The thing that I want to add though is that Brighton don't instill me with confidence when it comes to clean sheet potential either. That said, Estupinan is sort of like in the Chilwell role where he joins in as the fourth attacker every time they're overloading that box. And Brighton play risky football where they're overloading the box. He's just got a higher volume of runs into the box. So his chances of scoring a goal or assisting are very, very high. And I mean, shout out to Eno on our Discord who captained Estupinan. I thought he was massively unlucky. Like he was in through yesterday 2, 3, 4 times and could have had a goal or assist. I just think he's clear as a pick.
Yeah, I watched 90 minutes of Brighton after a long time yesterday. He was very attacking with Mitoma often holding the width. Superman was the one making the underlapping runs. Okay, it was a good save from the Palace keeper, created a couple of chances. I think as a standalone pick, even in terms of attacking potential, not looking at any defense, he's ahead of Henry.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. Do you guys, would you encourage a double up with James and Chilwell?
You tell us, so I don't know.
The comment from James that he himself is saying that he needs to look after his body, manage his fitness, and now that he's been called up for England is a bit of a red flag to me.
Yeah. And if you're picking one between the two, I'd go Chilwell. I don't think it's close at the moment because of fitness reasons.
Fitness, set pieces, and the role is still a bit different. James is going to his crossing is so good, so we are going to use that aspect of his game where Chilwell is sort of playing the inside forward. So I feel the ceiling is a little bit higher on Chilwell's end.
Yeah. Just before we move on, would you put me off Kai as a pick? Or you say go for it if you feel it?
I'd say go for it. I don't buy into the X minutes thing as much at all. I think he's going to play. He's pretty much one of our most pivotal players. X minutes shouldn't be a reason to put you off. And I really there's again no reason not to go for Kai. If you ask me, I would still rate Watkins as a better pick though.
Yeah.
That's where I am.
But you wouldn't put me off. That's all. That's all I wanted to ask. Yeah.
Definitely not. Anything more to add on the defenders, or this one shall we move to the captaincy discussion, which deserves some time this week, I think.
Yep.
So before I think the main two candidates this week are Saka and Kane, and we'll discuss some of the other guys who are more left field picks like Martinelli, Tony, etc. But I just
Saka / forward / Arsenal midfielder. I don't think Saka is the.
Correct. I'm just talking about in terms of the popular guys who everyone owns. You obviously have your Martinelli and Odegaard. But I have some images over here from Saka that Baker sent us. I'll just enlarge them so everyone on the stream can see it. This is from the Fulham game. And as a Saka owner, I did feel that Saka was a bit wider than usual. And so what this shows over here is now what is happening is out of possession. Martinelli is drifting central with Trossard keeping the width on the left side. But in possession, you see Martinelli and Trossard occupying more of the inside areas, which is forcing Saka out wide a little bit. I don't have this similar data from the Bournemouth game, where he was quite unlucky not to score. So you could say there's a bit of a small sample size. But just on the eye test and from the discussion with the Arsenal fans on our Discord, Saka has been playing a little bit wider lately. And do you think he looks a little bit tired, Ella? We were discussing that also earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I had a very risky decision last week because I had to sell one of Saka or Martinelli for McAllister, and I went with selling Saka. It's just because he looks a little tired, and because Martinelli just looks like an outstanding pick at the moment. Like he is the chance magnet in that Arsenal team at the moment. So yeah, I'd be wary of captaining Saka this week. I'd be more inclined to maybe captain Odegaard if you own him over Saka because of the nature of the game. And just because he looks a little jaded. And I think what happens in the Europa League and minutes tonight is also kind of important.
Bakar, have you noticed any change in the numbers from what I had a stats dive today? He's having a lot of shots in the box, but the big chances are still quite low, right?
I don't think there's been a significant drop-off in numbers. If you look at the recent home games, he's hauled against Everton, 12 points. And even against Bournemouth, I think he was very unlucky not to have hauled. Would we be having this discussion regarding his position had he had a penalty rightfully awarded to him against Bournemouth and scored from a tap in that
because it's a penalty, not a goal from open play. We would still be having the discussion.
I mean, he should have scored from open. No, he should have scored from open play as well. He was denied by the goalkeeper. As of now, I'm on Saka captain simply because, I prefer him over the other Arsenal midfielders because of penalties. The numbers are very tight between Saka, Odegaard. There's nothing between them. But obviously, when you factor in penalties, that has to count as a bit of an additional advantage. And I'm 60-40 on Saka over Kane. I mean, the thing with Kane is that Spurs don't really create as much away from home. Their XG is around 1.1. Arsenal are creating 2.23 XG at home this season, and Saka's XG and non-pen XG is actually much better than Kane at home. And we'll speak about the flank weaknesses later as well. The Crystal Palace have a flank weakness on his side as well, so I'm not as put off as you guys are on Saka.
I just want to say that monitor the minutes today. If he's playing 90, then tread with caution, because he played 90 in the Europa League game.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Last week as well, he played 90 at the weekend, and one more 90, especially when he's looking a little jaded. Just monitor that. And I know Arsenal are a chance creating machine at the moment, but I saw the game against Brighton. I saw 90 minutes of that game, and I thought Palace were quite decent. Like, they didn't look like they could be blown over, but Arsenal are a different beast compared. But I just wanted to add that I thought they look quite decent. So, before the game yesterday, I was on Martinelli captain, but after yesterday, I'm thinking about going back to the comforts of a certain Harold.
Yeah, the thing is that Crystal Palace, their defense is definitely much better than Southampton's. And Crystal Palace tend to do better away from home generally. But the thing is that Arsenal are far superior at home as compared to Spurs away as well.
Correct. Yeah. And let's talk about the keeper also, about the Palace keeper. Let's just touch upon that while we are talking about the Palace defense. I thought he did quite well yesterday. I don't think Guaita would have done significantly better than him. He made the stops expected. Does that factor into your decision making at all, guys?
No, not really. I thought he was fine. Really. But I think the finishers playing for that Arsenal team are capable of finishing good chance when it comes to them, especially Saka. I think his finishing is not an issue.
Yep. It doesn't play too much part in my decision making either if I go for that, because he seemed quite competent, the keeper. I don't think it's necessarily a weakness.
Yeah, it isn't. I wonder if, do you think the fact that Southampton had a midweek game and Spurs had a week of training under Conte makes you lean towards Kane? They'll be fresher than Southampton as well. That's another thought, that I had. Is it a big factor in your opinion?
I think more than the minutes, what I'm looking at now is Southampton's state of mind. Southampton have the worst home record in the division. We can't ignore that aspect. And the fact is they did lose at home and they are desperate for points. They're 20th in the table now. I don't expect Palace to come out of their half, even if they concede a couple of goals, they concede early. But if Southampton do concede, I think they're going to pretty much go all out to try and score. The desperation is more for Southampton because Palace have a great run of fixtures after Arsenal. They can pretty much, this game is sort of a free hit, throw this game and win the rest, they'll be perfectly fine. Southampton are a bit of a dire situation where being so defensive hasn't really worked for them. And even though they have kept these clean sheets, the defensive performances have not been great. Against Leicester, they could have conceded a few. Even yesterday, I don't know, they didn't concede many chances, but they conceded good quality chances. Against a Brentford side that didn't really commit. So I like the potential for seeding. I think their game state-wise is a bit higher in the Southampton fixture.
Well, how do you guys, and I wanted to ask both of you, what do you see with Everton? Do you think that defense has improved with Daesh? I haven't felt that full effect as yet, because I think Chelsea also should be in the captaincy conversation. People who have Kai, if at all. And if somebody wants to punt on a Chilwell, I think Chilwell is a fine punt as a captaincy option as well. What's your read of that Everton defense? Do you think they can be blown over? I'm not sure about that.
We've seen this with Daesh's team at Burnley as well. Away, they do tend to get rolled over. There's something different,
especially against the bigger teams. Especially against the bigger teams.
Yep. But that being said, because of how they crowd Bakar, I'll remember that. Okay, so but Everton do crowd the box a little bit. So Havertz might not get as much joy as the guys around him. I'd sort of like Chilwell a bit more. I think Chilwell's ceiling is a bit high because it's a game where the centre backs will be occupied with the centre forwards. Chilwell can drift into those positions. He has those set pieces. Good potential for clean sheet. If you're going for a Chelsea captain, I'd remember that.
Yeah, I think the floor of a clean sheet chance is quite good in this game. So it's a good punt if you're wanting to punt.
Yeah.
And he's got outlets if you think about it. He's got good outlet in open play. He's on set pieces as well. And then there's the clean sheet potential. 3 routes to points. I don't mind it at all.
Yep. Any other picks we should discuss in terms? I like Tony as well. The whole
Yeah.
England call up, the whole thing. I wouldn't put anyone going off Tony. Like you said, Martinelli,
Yeah.
Odegaard,
Yeah.
also decent picks.
Yeah,
Tony,
I actually think
Watkins,
that
even Watkins is
Martinelli
fine
and
as well.
Odegaard are better captaincy picks than Saka. I'd be willing to roll the dice there just because of what I've seen when I'm watching Arsenal. That's all.
I'd be
I
inclined to
think
agree with you.
Martinelli is great.
I think
Yeah.
Martinelli would probably be my top in the pecking order just because of the role he's playing right now. The link up with Trossard is great. That being said,
Yeah.
maybe Jesus comes on for 30 minutes. Again, it all depends on the Europa League minutes also, right?
Yeah, but even if Jesus comes on, I think my perception and the thought process behind holding Martinelli is as long as Martinelli isn't playing with Eddie Nketiah, who's not a mobile forward, he does well. Because Jesus and Martinelli also had a good chemistry going on in the first third of the season. We saw that's the whole thinking. So, if I have to sell Martinelli in 29 for a midfielder who doubles, I'd think 2 or 3 times before that because I think if he's playing with Jesus or Trossard, he's a good pick. But then the devil's advocate there is that if Jesus starts and Trossard sort of is competing with Martinelli as well as Jesus for both the spots, whether that's on the left forward or the position up front, you're sort of worried about expected minutes there too. So it's a two-faced coin there.
Yeah, that's why I'm not that high on Martinelli for captaincy because with Jesus back in the picture, early subs could happen, which isn't really ideal.
Yep. A lot depends on how far the game goes and also how intense the game is, not just the minutes. If Arsenal have a comfortable 2-0, 3-0 victory where they can sub guys off early, I don't think that factors into Sunday at all. But obviously the form team is Arsenal.
Yeah.
Because the Spurs, the 3 goals, I don't think you read too much into it. It was against a Forest side who struggled. And even then they got like one penalty and the other chances weren't really like overflowing with chances. And again, we have this theory that Kane doesn't play that well with Richarlison. He drops deeper. So I'm quite 50-50 on the decision, slightly on Kane right now.
He did well at the weekend with Richarlison. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, but still the numbers were good. One was a penalty and the one was a header. I get the point you're making, but I'm very 60-40 on this right now.
There's also a subconscious, I don't know if it's just the results in the Premier League that has made us feel that, but there's a subconscious thought in my head where Southampton are very much capable of losing 5 or 6-0. Like, I don't feel that with Palace yet. I don't know if it's just weird because of things that have happened with Southampton, but they're capable of just throwing. But to their credit, they have improved under the new manager. But just letting you guys know whatever's going on in my head at the moment.
I kind of agree with that. But do you think Spurs are capable of winning 5 or 6-0? I don't think so.
Yeah, fair point.
It's interesting. There are a lot of rumors today in the press about Vieira's job possibly being in danger.
Yeah. Zoff, you made me think about Chilwell a little more than I was previously. Like, decent option. Not against.
Definitely a decent option. So now, where are you boys on? Bakar? I think you're Saka, you mentioned.
60-40, yeah. 60-40 on Saka.
What would you need to see today in the Europa League to change your mind?
Let's say if Odegaard looks better or if he plays 90 minutes and doesn't look as effective, then I'll probably shift to Kane. I won't be captaining anyone else.
Pranay?
Yeah, but I'm currently 60 Kane for 30 Martinelli, 10 Chilwell.
I'm 60-40 Kane.
Yeah. Zoff, I wanted to check with you because Leicester were quite attacking against Chelsea. Do I need to be worried about Chelsea's defensive prospects? Or it was just that game because Leicester are good with attack?
So Leicester, the XG you see over there was primarily 2 big chances, I think, which they fluffed. The one was from KDH and one was from Amati. The XG in that doesn't really paint a true picture because it didn't create a high volume of chances, but the 2-3 chances they had were very big chances.
All right. Cool. I do want to say that, this is one of those weeks where you actually can roll the dice with whoever you're feeling for the captaincy because I think it will be fairly spread out. So just back your gut in this case. It's one of those weeks.
I think Kane will be outright favorite. Even if you look at the polls, Kane is far ahead.
I think that's probably recency bias there, right? Because Kane braced at the weekend and Saka hasn't been involved in Arsenal's last 6 goals.
Yeah.
You have to read a little bit into that. You could see Arsenal winning 2-0, 3-0 and Saka getting an assist. But if Spurs are winning 3, you expect Kane to get at least 2 returns from that.
Yep.
This is quite similar to the Brighton and Brentford discussion we were having last week. Brighton were the higher ceiling team, but the goal involvement as we saw with Tony, both the goals they scored had goals for Tony. So good week to roll the dice. Speaking, should we move on to the free hit and wildcard discussion? A lot of guys are playing chips this week.
So do we still have to discuss the Brighton mids? We haven't really touched upon them. Do you keep them this week? What is the plan? Madison, we still
let's talk about Madison.
That.
I think we were touching upon him when the international break news came out. Madison is a great pick, but the fitness issues are still lingering for me. He goes away with England, and when they come back, they have 3 games, the 2 in 20, 29, and then 30. That slightly puts me off. I'd like to put that investment till later. And do you think did you guys see any one particular Brighton mid you would want? I had a lot of McAllister FOMO obviously going into the second game, but that was sort of alleviated a little bit in post-match. Solly March even mentioned that the coach had told them to make more inside runs from the wing. That was a particular instruction they had been given this game, and you could see it. He was making a lot of the runs as the inside forward this time. So I think I'm quite content holding both March and Mitoma. Has a pecking order changed for you guys in any way? Do you see that as such?
No, I think what happened in terms of the results is quite indicative of the Brighton mids. If you own 3 of March, McAllister, Mitoma, and Estupinan, hold them. Because otherwise you're just going to spiral into a world of pain trying to play that game. Stick with the ones you have.
I'd agree with that. Like if I had one, for example, I didn't like, I would possibly move him to Madison and buy the other guy next week. That's possibly a switcheroo I would look at. But now I really don't think it makes sense selling him. But Madison is a good pick. I wouldn't put anyone off buying him this week.
I've owned him for 2 weeks, right? So I've sort of looked at him from that tunnel vision. I'm confident about him as a pick. I'm not too worried. It's not like he's looked jaded or leggy when he's playing as well. He looks very, very involved. I thought he was very unlucky to not get a couple of assists against Spurs either. He's playing as a forward 10 in that team. And especially if he's playing in the 4-2-3-1 with Iheanacho, I like his prospects even more because Iheanacho holds the ball, which means Madison makes the runs and there's a higher chance of goals. Good pick.
Anything to add, Bakar?
I really like him. The fixture's coming up, and at the moment I'm actually leaning towards selling one of the Brighton mids for Madison. Even if it takes like a hit, I don't really mind it because I think Madison will do well over the coming fixtures. And next week, I personally see McAllister as a superior pick to the other two. I think McAllister can come in for Odegaard or Martinelli, depending on whoever you want in 29. Sorry. That's what I'm considering right now. That would also give me 11, and it's essentially a -2 this week, which is a very low cost hit, and I do expect Leicester to score. So, I mean, I think it's a good move.
I think if you separate the fact that it's a move to buy an extra game, then it's fine. But I don't see any weightage in the argument that one Brighton mid is better than the other. That's where I am.
Yeah. Especially considering Solly March scored what?
McAllister's better. Yeah.
March scored 19 points this week, despite that.
I'm likely to keep March, actually. I think if I was keeping one, I'd keep March over Mitoma. So yeah, I think I might do Mitoma to Madison. The only thing that is worth discussing here is even though this would sort of still allow me to have enough funds to get Haaland back, it would not give me enough to get Fernandes if needed. So this is an interesting one because it's basically one or the other. Whether, especially in my case, I can either go for Madison or wait for Bruno next week. So it's a tricky one because if I commit to Madison now, then I won't be able to get to Bruno next week.
Yeah, I think you should keep your options.
What are your thoughts on Bruno? What are your thoughts on Bruno, Pranil?
Good pick.
Without Cass.
With or without Cass, good pick. He had his best season without Casemiro in the team. Good pick. Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. But I do think if you can't afford, like for what's going to happen for me, because I'm going to get Chilwell, Bruno might be out of reach. I think Madison can match Bruno in 29 and 30 at least.
Yeah, that's why I'm not that concerned. That's why I'm looking to make 3 transfers. Bring in Chilwell, bring in Watkins, bring in Madison, and then next week I'll just sell Odegaard to McAllister, who I think is a better pick than the Brighton mids anyway.
I think a lot more players will open up as picks next week as well. Like why aren't we looking at Mo Salah at the moment? He does his best work against the big teams. I don't think those fixtures are bad. Got a confirmed fixture in 32, depending on when you're free hitting. I think Barnes will open as a pick. We're not looking at Bowen or Benrahma at the moment. We've got two outstanding fixtures in 29. I think your mind will open up to all these picks next week as well, especially if you're looking at the cheaper bracket based on how you're sort of managing your money. So yeah, it's just you're not looking at them right now, but they could be opening up as options next week. I mean, West Ham absolutely battered Villa. They created a ton of chances, and I thought Benrahma and Bowen both look good. So good fixtures next week as well. So there are a lot of options in the cheaper midfield bracket that you could consider next week. And you could be in the market for a forward also if Tony gets a yellow. So you don't know.
Yeah, I'd probably buy Haaland back straight away if Tony does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I was going to. You can just prepone that move and buy him straight away.
Yes. So I'm saying like we'll just cross that bridge when we get there. I pretty nailed on for an injury to a popular Wildcard 26 pick in the international break as well, because that's just what happens with FPL. So
anything to add, guys? Move on to the free hit and wildcards.
Yeah, free hit. Let's do free hit first.
Cool. I actually have the wildcard one up here, and Bakar, this is what you had shared on Twitter. Do you have the image in front of you, or should I just read it out for our audio guys real quick?
I'll open up just a second.
I'll read it out then. It's Ward and Kepa in goal. Chilwell, Zinchenko, double Newcastle defense. Estupinan, double Arsenal mids. With Brighton mid, Maddison, Rashford, Watkins, Havertz, and Kane. And you had mentioned Ship and Arsenal mid for Brighton mid in 29. That's the plan, right?
Yeah.
I like it. The only problem I would say it's a bit similar to obviously what the guys already have. All of us already have.
Yeah, the only question mark was the lack of Tony, but I think the suspension now, the yellow card yesterday, makes the front line completely nailed. I mean, if I was on wildcard this week, Kane, Havertz, Watkins would be kind of like a no-brainer.
Yep. Anything more to
I
discuss?
just want to add that if you've got a decent team and if you're fielding 9 even this week, I'd postpone playing the wildcard until 29. Because I just think that we'll know the fixtures in 34 and what they look like. We'll know if Brighton or Newcastle have extra games in 30, 31, etc. We'll know if there are any injuries in 30. We'll have 1 week worth of more information. I just think there's a lot more value to holding on that wildcard until 29 or later if you can field 29. If you can field 9 players.
That's not the only factor though, right? Because people want to use the wildcard right now to BB in 29. That's the big thing.
I understand, but I feel like you'll know the ecosystem and what 34 and 37 will look like. So you can, like if I have a wildcard in 29, I'll know how to manage a BB in 34 or 37 when the fixtures are in front of me and when the games are in front of me. I just think there is more value. The way I see the game, I think you're sort of tunnel visioning yourself by playing this wildcard in 28. I'd personally do that in 29. Play it in 29. Hold off in 28.
Yeah, I appreciate the point you're saying about tunnel visioning a little bit because you're pretty much just going with the same thing. I mean, you'd like to gain some sort of edge, right, by wildcarding at this point. That's not the thing.
And we saw this week, good single week fixtures led to a good bench boost. So I'm not too bothered about that if you target the right fixtures because you'll have the full thing in front of you in 29.
Anything more to
I mean, there's plenty of value addition in that case. For example, I mean, you can sell your Arsenal assets in 29. So I do see his point as well. Yeah.
Like I that's why I just wanted to add that if I was wildcarding, I'd rather do it in 29 than 28.
That's fair. Let's just quickly discuss the free hits. I've got one. These are both from Scout. This is sort of a safer one with Raya in goal, Trippier, Chilwell, Gabriel, Maddison, Almiron, Arsenal, mids, Tony, Watkins, Kane. A very Dullard Zofar style draft. Another one is possibly where you have a bit more flair picks. You throw cash in there, Son, Barnes, Buendia, maybe Isak and stuff. In general, what do you think should be a strategy for a free hit this week? How much do you balance high ownership players like Trippier and how much do you attack with picks like Son outside who are more out of the box picks?
Can I
go ahead
start on this one?
Yes.
Sure. I think a good base for this wildcard, this free hit would be start with 3 Chelsea, 3 Arsenal. Like I wouldn't compromise on that no matter what. I'd make sure I have an Arsenal player called Martinelli in my team no matter what. I'd make sure I have Chilwell in my team no matter what. You can decide what you want to do with the other positions. I'd get Kane in there. I'd punt on Son because he's a very high upside punt, especially against a team like Southampton. have Trippier in there and then see what you want to do with the flair picks. Flair picks that I like for this week. I'm not fully confident about Aston Villa because I think Bournemouth have improved as a team. And I think that's going a little under the radar in terms of how well they're doing as a team this day. In fact, I fancy Bournemouth to score a goal or two against Villa. That's how I view that game. I wouldn't punt on Newcastle attackers because Forest tend to do well at home as well. So have Trippier in there, have Son and Kane in there, 3 Arsenal, 3 Chelsea, and then see where you want to go from there. Tony is a good pick as well because Leicester are leaky. If you want to punt on an Iheanacho or a Madison, I don't mind it either. So
yeah, I won't overlook Tony either. I think he would actually be my second forward after Kane.
Go on, get your creative juices. Which punt do you like the most?
I like Son, obviously, because we do think there has been some glimpses also of the numbers are up. I do like that. In defense, I think you get the Chelsea wingbacks and Trippier. That pretty much picks itself. Not really much to
what would be the 3 Chelsea you'd pick off?
James, Chilwell, Havertz.
Nice, I agree with that.
And then Tony, Kane. The midfield is where really you can, because I think there is a bit of a dearth of good midfield picks this week. I would even look at something like a triple Arsenal midfield. Maybe you take the risk of leaving out Saka, or maybe you get somebody like Trossard, because we saw that the potential is there. You want some guys who aren't really high EO, right? Nobody owns Trossard, so I'd chuck Trossard in there as well.
Yeah, I just want to say that when you're trying to get creative, don't not have 6 from the London teams. Like those are the best fixtures this week.
Agree. And toss in Tony as well. It's about 7 of your core right there.
And then Kane's on. It sort of picks itself. Yeah.
There's a limited palette. I think the Wolves lead fixture is a bit of a minefield. You could look at Dawson, but
even a lot of people are looking at Aston Villa defenders trap. I think Villa are rubbish defensively. I have no confidence in them and their ability to keep a clean sheet at all.
Without Kamara also. Kamara's a huge loss.
Defensively at home, they're not as good. Generally, they tend to do better.
Yeah. Exactly. But Pedro Porro, if you want to get creative and punt on a defender with high upside, I saw he took a pretty good direct free kick the other day as well. Tends to get a high volume of crosses in.
Yeah, but Emerson could be fit, so that depends on.
Live a little. You're on free hit, man. It's all good.
Yeah,
Emerson is first choice.
Yeah.
Enough. Let's just do our matchups real quick, and just look at the main guys we are considering. Aston Villa, Bournemouth, there's not really much to consider in terms of the flank weaknesses. Everton also, as we had covered last time, they conceded a lot of chances from wide positions, not so much for central positions, that we are discussing regarding Havertz. But again, now we look at Southampton. Southampton have the weakness on their left flank, so that's again good for Son, I think.
And it's good you pointed out the flank weakness for Everton. Sort of makes a case for Chilwell also, like you mentioned previously.
Both the wing backs pretty much keep the width over there. And like Bakar mentioned, the Palace have that weakness down Saka's flank. So that is something that Arsenal could exploit.
Yep. These beautiful charts are from Fantasypedia. You can follow them. The link is in the description in this video as well. They produce some great graphics throughout the week, so make sure you're following them.
You want to do the plug, etc. as well before we move on to our teams?
Yes. We've got a pretty hefty crowd watching us as well. If you've been watching and if you like the content we've been doing, please make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe button and share the work on Twitter, Instagram. Tell your friends about us because we appreciate all the support we get from you guys. We're grateful for it.
Yeah. And just a sneak peek, we are working on a lot more new content over the international break. You're going to see a few surprises from us after. I'm not going to give away too much, but exciting times ahead. Let's discuss our teams. And I find it quite amusing, Bakar, that you send me an image of your team every week. Let's just discuss our
What are you doing with your teams off?
I'm pretty much set. I'm going to do Haaland to Watkins and Henry to Chilwell. I don't think I'm going to do the Madison move because him going away with England and all that stuff terrifies me a little bit. If he was not called up for the England squad, I might have considered it, but going away for 2 weeks there, coming back 3 days, I'd rather make that move in 29 if it comes to it. I'll just read out my team really quick. It's Kepa, Trippier, Henry, Zinchenko, Botman, Saka, Odegaard, Kane, Haaland, Tony, with the 3 Brighton mids and Rashford, the guys who are not playing. So Bakar, your similar moves, but you might chuck in Maddison as well.
Yeah, Madison from Matoma is a move I'm considering.
Really not much to discuss further. Captaincy is probably be one that will be left till late. Elad, you're quite similar, but you have, I think, Martinelli over there instead of Saka and Maddison in midfield. Everybody else the same.
Yeah, and I'm looking to get Kai over Watkins as things stand.
Kai over Watkins and Chilwell in for Henry.
Yes.
Fair enough. Let's do a Q&A today. We didn't get to do
Yeah,
one
let's do a
last few
Q&A.
times.
Right, let's do a Q&A. I think we'll give it 5-7 minutes. Send in your questions, guys. What to do with Luke Shaw? If you have enough playing this week, hold. Fine pick. Yes, Casemiro makes us worse defensively. And if you don't have enough players, switch to Chilwell. But I'd rather switch a Brentford player if you can to Chilwell rather than Shaw.
Yeah.
I think he's a good
He
differential.
came close to scoring
have.
even against when you guys were down to 10 men. I remember seeing that.
Yeah. Just a good fullback. Shabota for a reason. Zoff, Randeep Singh is asking Felix over Havertz. What do you think?
Havertz right now. For some reason, Felix is always the first man taken off.
All right. Praveen Kaushik is asking Son or Barnes as a 1 week punt before Wildcard in 29. Bakar?
Son. Easily.
Much better fixture. The Brentford at home fixture is a bit dodgy. It's Brentford at home are very strong.
Nice. A good question. Best Sanchez replacement.
Interesting one. Steele was very good in terms of the
De Gea,
keeping
I
the ball
think.
and passing and all this, but probably
De Gea or Ward?
no. But he'd probably want somebody who plays this week, right?
If he owns Kepa, then he should probably get somebody who has a double in 29. If he doesn't own Kepa, he should get Kepa.
I'd agree with that. It probably makes if you own Kepa, then probably DDG because you have more doubles to come down the line as well.
Yeah. If you own Kepa, postpone decision next week. Why hurry?
Agree.
Yeah. FPL, we've got Pete from FPL team. If you guys don't already know, when we're forward planning our moves, you need to go to his website. It's the best one out there, fpl.team, where it shows your team with the fixtures, forward planning. You can save your forward transfers as well. It just really helps us. He's asked us a question, Tony and Kepa or Havertz and Ramsdale?
Tony and Kepa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leicester are leaky.
That's why Arsenal just don't allow shots. Kepa is quite friendly for bonus. If it's a 1-0, it wouldn't surprise any of us to see Kepa sneak 3 bonus again.
Yeah. Saga's
This
asking,
is an interesting question.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Bakar.
Haaland to Kane, worth it, already have Watkins. This is an interesting one. I'm not sure I would be buying Kane right now. It's, again, if you think he's the best captain, then buy him. Otherwise, there are other options you can go for this week. I mean, you can get someone who's doubling in 29.
Who Havertz?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Gabriel Jesus and no. Don't think of Gabriel Jesus as a pick at all. It's like Diego Jota, you know, these players who come from long-term injuries, we have no idea what their fitness levels are like. Until you see him play 75 minutes in one game, don't get him in.
Good.
Yeah.
Zinchenko or Gabriel on free hit? I would go with Zinchenko. I prefer his attacking threat. I think fullbacks, their attacking returns are slightly more predictable.
But aren't Palace like shit on free set pieces? Bakar.
I mean, yes, they do concede plenty of attempts, but I would still pick Zinchenko. I just think it's more predictable.
At home against the deep blocks, he's sort of the specialist.
Yeah. All right. Which transfer to prioritize, Watkins or Chilwell? Chilwell for me.
Chilwell.
Yeah. Higher ceiling.
Yeah. Thinking about that captaincy, man. Like Zoff feels good about it as well, which is kind of nice. Watkins or Havertz, we literally did the first 30 minutes of this pod on that, and we sort of played it out in terms of which one is better, which one isn't. And the answer was there's no wrong answer. Play Raya or Kepa this week? Play Kepa for sure.
Leicester are very capable of scoring. I think they have scored the 4th highest away goals.
Yeah. What do you think about Trippier cap? Because it looks like brain fart. What's his name? I completely forgot the
Ben
striker.
Johnson.
Yeah, Brennan Johnson.
Brendan Johnson. I said Brendan.
Brennan Johnson might be injured. That said, I just think that Forest are capable of showing up at home. I don't
Forest
feel
have scored in every single home game since game week 4.
exactly.
That was
Yeah,
a West
best
Ham game,
differential.
right? I think that was
Yeah.
early on, or was that? Yeah, I think that was. I think Spurs or West Ham, the West, where they really rode their luck.
Spurs
West
was
Ham.
game week 4. Spurs was game week 4.
Yeah.
West Ham was 2. West Ham was game week 1 or 2.
Okay.
Game week 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody mentioned Salah, and it just brought me back. Like if you're building a wildcard team in 29, you're probably going to have more Salah in your team if you're not looking to free it in 32. Like those sort of things will open up in your brain once you have those 34 fixtures in
And they're
front of
tunnel
you.
vision now, right? They're out of the Champions League.
Exactly. Like I won't be surprised if we're looking at Salah in 29. I genuinely won't be surprised. Like it's something we might consider if they have a double in 34, close, etc. We might plan for that, So I don't know.
Let's do a couple more.
Cool. Best defender, he already has Chilwell.
That's actually interesting because we were discussing in terms of high upside guys. There's not much probably share. Otherwise, you say James.
James, Zinchenko, Chilwell, Trippier.
Hey,
that's the
Zoff, if somebody wants to go value, is Fofana nailed?
Short term, yes. Long term, no. He's probably one of the guys who sits out with Badiashile coming in when that whole 30-31 period happens.
All right, fair play. Cool. I think that's it for questions this week. Thank you so much for being with us, guys. I'll probably take a week off next week. Might have some short content or if anything spontaneous happening. Until then, good luck, guys, and continue slating Bakar on Twitter. He fully deserves it. I'm only joking.
And on Instagram as well.
Right. We love you, Bakar. We're only joking.
Yes, thank you.
Take care. Any last words, boys?
Chelsea aren't a big team. I'm gonna get you for that. Okay, guys, it's been fun.
I mean, it's debatable.
Right.
Let's keep it for some other day.
See you guys after the international break. Have a good one.
Take care, guys.